So, mixed doubles defence. You might know some tactics, such as the man should mainly lift straight and the woman should mainly lift cross. That's if her defence isn't as good, that is. But there's so much more to it than this.
There certainly is. So if you want to improve your defence and win more matches, then keep watching as we're going to share some great tips and insight to help you do just this.
So we're going to start with the basics. How should you set up in defence and who takes what shot? Well, your exact positioning will depend on where your opponents are hitting their shot from. So we're going to discuss 4 scenarios. And the first one is if you've lifted to the corner and your opponents are hitting their shot on balance. Then we'd recommend being in a setup like this, with the player on the straight facing the attacker. And as you can see, the player on the straight is slightly further back than the cross-court player. And this is because they need to give themselves more time to react. The cross-court player should be stood around here, slightly further forwards, as the shuttle takes longer to travel cross-court, so they have a bit more time to react. And as the woman, whatever you do, don't stay defending in the middle like this. It's impossible for you to react in time, and almost impossible for your man to cover the whole court around you, so you need to move back to help him out.
For scenario 2, if your lift is really good and your opponents aren't quite on balance, then you should be in a slightly more aggressive position with your body and racket positioning, ready to capitalise on their shots and maybe even take a step forward, which we'll talk about in the next section.
It's also really important as the woman that you're always ready in your defence. A standard tactic is that the attacking shot is more than likely coming to you. Don't stand there relaxing because you're on the cross, so you don't think it's coming to you.
But we don't always hit accurate lifts right to the corner. Sometimes we hit short lifts that put you under a lot of pressure. So what should we do in this third scenario? Well, in this situation, which hopefully you're not in too often, you should move your position back to give you more time to react, and also have your racket in this lower position like this, ready for any steep angled smashes. Here we'd recommend the player on the straight moving over to completely cover their line, and the player on the cross covering the middle. And if they play a full cross-court smash into the tram lines, you've just got to accept that this is probably going to be a winning shot.
Yeah, when you have such little time like this, you need to cover the shots that have the highest percentage of being played. And this full cross-court shot is one of the riskiest shots your opponents can play, so it's least likely. Now, the fourth scenario is one we see a lot, a lift to the middle. What should you do here? What we, along with many other professional players do, is I, as the woman, take any attacking shots around my body, plus my tramline, and I typically leave the drops and smashes down the middle for Greg, as he has a better defence than me.
So they were the 4 scenarios, but one big question, who gets the clears? Well, if you're in a defensive position, like scenarios 1, 3 and 4, then it's unreasonable to expect the man to get the clear over the top of the woman. The woman shouldn't be too far forwards in these situations, so she should be able to get the clear, even if she just clears it back. You as the man should still get the clear down the middle though, so your woman can move to the front and you can get in your preferred attacking formation. However, if your opponents are under a little bit of pressure, like in scenario 2, and your woman has made a slight move forward in her positioning, then you would spot this, and if they clear, then you as the man would take it. And we won't cover any more basic setup or technique here, as we've actually covered that on a previous video, which we'll link at the end for you. But one thing we mentioned in this video that is important to mention now is that you need to move as a pair. And what we mean by this is that you need to move across the court together, depending on where you hit the shuttle to, like this. And if your partner has no idea what you mean when you say, let's move as a pair, then maybe share this video with them. Okay, so you're now in your correct setup, but what shots should you play in defence? And what should you do after you hit these?
Well, generally, people are better in attack than they are in defence. So we need to focus on how you can turn these defensive scenarios into the attack. And how you do this depends on, I know we keep saying this, but it depends on the position you're in, plus the strengths and weaknesses of both you and your opponents. So let's go through some examples specific to mixed of what you can do to either turn defence into attack or even put your opponent under enough pressure to force a mistake.
So, if your female opponent isn't comfortable at the back, then you want to try and force her to the back, and there are 2 ways you can do this. The first way is pretty simple. You can flick the woman at the start of the rally and then keep her at the back. If you don't easily win the point from the woman being at the back, after a few lifts, the man is likely to try to move back and force the rotation, which leaves big gaps at the front of the court that you can block into. The second way is to try to play shots to make the man move forwards when your opponents are in a side-by-side position. This could be by blocking it in front of him to bring him in, and then you will lift to the woman after this. And it's important to mention that these two examples require both you and your partner to be comfortable lifting to the back with good accuracy.
Example number 2 of what shots you can do when defending in mixed doubles is for when the man is slow around the back. Here, you should move him quickly around the court with fast lifts and then apply pressure by moving up the court like this.
Example number 3 is if the woman doesn't like to move across the net and she stood on the tee like she has super glue stuck to her feet. Here we would recommend focusing on using your blocks and fades, turning the shuttle to make her move across the full width of the court. After you've hit these blocks, you as the woman should move forwards and follow the shuttle, as long as your opponents are going to be taking it from below the height of the net, that is. And the woman should go in, even if it's the man that blocks. Again, as long as it's a good block, making your opponents take the shuttle below the height of the net. Now it's really important to make these moves forward, both quickly and decisively. Otherwise you'll leave a big gap for the player at the net to play a simple net shot and you'll be straight back into a defensive position. If the woman doesn't make a quick move forwards, then it's also harder for the man to quickly move to cover any shots past her, which he needs to do.
Okay, this next example is one of the most common and where we see a lot of players go wrong. So, if I as the woman am stretched out to the side of the net and my partner behind me is then under pressure and needs to lift out, then he should try to lift cross court with height and then move so he's defending on the straight. This is so important as I'm almost completely out of the game here, so this gives me time to move back into a defensive position, and being on the cross means I have more time to react. If there was more of a gap on the straight, then the man would of course lift here, but he needs to make sure that he lifts with height so that he gives the woman time to recover back on the cross.
Lifting with height also makes it harder for the attacking player, as it's harder to time the shuttle when it's coming down onto the strings like this, as you hit the side of the shuttle, as opposed to when it's coming flat onto the strings, it's much easier to time.
So there were 4 different examples of how you can use defence to your advantage, or how you can just stay in the rally. But we have 3 more bonus points for you. Firstly, it's really hard to play a soft block off a full power smash. You just can't get the control necessary to play the shot with quality. If you want to hit a softer shot, then we'd recommend using a fade, which we've discussed on our previous advanced doubles defence video.
Secondly, don't feel the need to block straight away, as this is when your opponents are most likely to be ready for it. So you might want to play another lift or a drive to push your opponents back before playing your block and moving forwards.
And finally, don't be predictable. Even if you're under pressure and think you can only play straight, just using half turns can be really effective. Players often like to move in straight lines, so even making them turn a tiny amount will make them take the shuttle slightly later, as you're not playing it directly onto their racket. Them taking the shuttle here as opposed to here really does make a huge difference and can get you out of trouble.
Defence is an area of the game that can always be improved. We've been training for 20 years and still practice our defence almost every day. So, if you want to learn more about defending, including different techniques for different shots and just general doubles tactics, then check out this playlist here. Or, if you missed the first 2 parts in this huge mixed doubles series, which has taken us over 100 hours to create, then check out this playlist here.
And a quick shout out to our patrons for their continued support, which has enabled me to quit my delivery job and instead focus on creating these videos for you all. If you'd also like to join our Patreon, where you can support the channel and get access to loads of different perks, then we'll include a link in the description below. And we'll see you on another video.